Hello, my name is Troy Douglas, and this is my presentation for leadership and management. Over the past few weeks, I had the opportunity to interview Pastor John Musil of West Greeley Baptist Church here in Greeley, Colorado. He was more than kind to give me the answers and give me his time for this assignment. The first question I asked him was, how does faith make a difference in your leadership? He told me that good leaders make use of their talents and abilities and the gifts of those around them, the resources available to them, such as people, time, talents, and treasures. He went on to mention the parable of the talents, which is told in Matthew 25:14 through 30, which is one of my actual favorite parables because for a while I wasn't using any of my talents or abilities. So secondly, I went on to ask him, what do you learn from good leaders and what do you learn from bad ones? For this one, he said, good leaders know their values and their values line up with their actions. That you lead through what you do, pretty much. You lead by example. Good leaders can't control what happens around them. They can't control how people respond to them. He told me that a good leader can only control what happens within them. Good leaders ask questions and help people to find the answers without actually telling people the answers. They also listen, are good communicators, and give input when needed. A good leader also knows the dangers and pitfalls that are ahead of any kind of assignment or job. And when I asked him for what a bad leader is, he said a bad manager is a person who doesn't do any of those things or does just the opposite. The next question I asked Pastor Musil was, how do you deal with conflict on your team? Now, he says he addresses conflict very quickly. He doesn't allow it to linger. He says, quote, I tend to over-communicate conflict by making it clear and figure out people's potential feelings and such. Now, I remember my reading in chapter 12 of the leadership book. There is all sorts of conflict management approaches, such as being assertive, being competitive, accommodating, or sharing. He seems to be the type that accommodates and shares when it comes to conflict. The next question I asked him is, how do you create a safe place for workers to share ideas and concerns? His version of a safe place is to be teachable. Even though he's the head pastor of his church, he knows he doesn't have all the answers. So he has an open door policy, which means people can talk to him about anything or give him advice or voice their complaints without him getting upset. He wants people to feel comfortable around him, to voice their opinions without being hesitant. There's no such thing as a bad idea. The next one is, have you ever had to deal with an ethical or moral problem as a leader, and how'd you handle it? Now, this one was pretty hard for me, or shocking, I should say. He says there was a deacon in the church, his church, who, the deacon wasn't married, by the way, and he had let a woman who was married move in with him. When he found out, he asked, why? What was going on? The deacon said the woman just got out of an abusive marriage and needed a place to stay. Well, Pastor Musil wanted to tell this deacon that it was inappropriate. Obviously inappropriate. A few days later, he approached the deacon again, and the deacon said he actually was planning on entering into a relationship with this woman. So it was at that point that Pastor Musil and the rest of the church team decided to remove him from the position of being a deacon and cancel their church membership. So That goes back to having ethics and morals. You gotta know the difference between right and wrong, and let the Bible help you to discern from right and wrong. And obviously, I was wrong. The next question I asked was, how does he value workers? He tells me that workers are an extension of his ministry, that he celebrates the success of people by giving them gift cards on special occasions. They also pray for each other, too, lifting each other up. He's also available to listen to the concerns of his workers, too, like any pastor should. Next question, I asked him to think of one person on your team that's a great follower, and what are the characteristics of a great follower. He didn't name anyone in particular, but it did lift off a couple of traits of a good follower. And the first one is being able to follow Jesus, a hunger for God's word, being self-directed, having a good attitude, cooperates well, listens prayerfully, and has a desire to make things better. Another question I asked was to share with me the characteristics of a good and bad follower whom he supervised. Now, Pastor Musil, before becoming an ordained minister, was a car salesman at a dealership. He had a team of people whose job was to sell cars, and those who did a good job got rewarded, and those who didn't pretty much got let go. He says, quote, "For those that were poor in performance, I went through a work protocol that included verbal warnings and written warnings to change their behavior prior to termination. For those that did not want to follow or had bad attitudes relating to work, he let them go, just like the deacon." So, even though you're a pastor, you still have to make the hard decisions to let people go who may be hurting your business, your company, or your church. And the last question I asked him, in his experience, how does he motivate people? Now, he went on to use an analogy of a carrot and a stick. The carrot is the reward, and the stick is some sort of motivation. He likes people to be able to go for the carrot without the stick being used. As he says, as it relates to leadership, I personally try to give more carrot opportunities and not rely on the stick to enforce actions. If the stick is the motivation for a person on a team, then typically the person is not a good fit for the team. And there you have it. That is my interview with Pastor John Musil. Now, some of the things I learned from him was that leaders don't have all the answers. So this tells me his leadership style was more participative versus an autocratic, which I'm used to being prior military. And my leadership style is also participative, but as a consultative leadership style. I much rather hear everyone else's opinions, concerns before I make a decision that's for the best of the team. And as for conflict management, like I said earlier, he uses accommodative and sharing, which was what I would be too. I'm not an assertive or a competitive person with my personality or leadership style. Well, that concludes my interview with Pastor Musil, and thank you for watching this presentation.